Welcome back, everyone, to this lecture on order by. You may have noticed that PostgreSQL sometimes returns the same request query results in a different order, meaning you may have run the exact same query on your computer and saw the results in a slightly different order than what I have on my computer. So, in order to alleviate this issue if we want the results in a certain order, we can use the order by to sort rows based on a column value in either ascending or descending order. So that would be alphabetical for string-based columns or numerical order for numeric columns. The basic syntax for an order by statement would be as follows. We select whatever columns we want from the table, and then we decide to order by a specific column. And then optionally, you can add in ASC or DESC, whether you want that ordering or sorting to be ascending or descending. Notice the order by towards the end of the query, since we want to do any selection and filtering first before finally sorting. So that means order by is going to be towards the bottom of a query and one of the very last things that SQL actually performs. So we're going to do all our selection, all our filtering. If we use a where statement, that should come before the order by, and then right at the end, we'll go ahead and do any sorting. And you use ASC to sort in ascending order, DESC to sort in descending order. If you leave it blank, order by just uses ascending by default. Now what's also interesting is you can use order by on multiple columns. So this makes sense when one column has duplicate entries. Let's take a look at this example database or example table really. We have 3 columns here, company, name, and the sales for that individual at that company. Notice here that we have duplicate entries under company. So if we were to actually order by 2 columns here, we could select the company column, the name column, and the sales column in that order from this table, and then we order by company and then order by sales. What does that actually mean? Well, it means we sort everything first based off the company column. So notice we have Apple coming in first in alphabetical order, then Google, and then Xerox. And then the corresponding names also get lined up. However, we can then also order by the sales. So after you've done the sorting based off the company column, which makes sense because there's duplicate values there, within that particular company, we do a second ordering, which is by the sales column. So note the sales now is in an ascending order for each individual within the same company. So we see Andrew with 100, and then Zach with 300. And then for Google, we see Claire with 200, and then David with 500. So if you have duplicate values in a particular column, and you want to sort not just by that particular column, but another column as well, it makes sense to do an order by with multiple columns. And it's going to sort based off the order you provide. So it'll order by company first, and then by sales. Let's go ahead and explore some more examples in pgadmin on the DVD rental database. Okay, here I am inside of pgadmin. What I'm going to do is explore the customer table. So we will say select, and let's select just everything from the customer table so we can take a quick look at what the results look like here. So notice we have this customer ID, and more or less it seems to be in order except for this first one, which is 524, and then we also have the first name and last name. Let's see if we can order everything based off the first name of the user. So that would be an alphabetical order based off first name. So what we do here is, towards the bottom, we'll say order by, and then we decide on the column. So we'll say order by first name. If I don't leave anything here and just run this, it'll automatically order it here in ascending order. So starting at A all the way down. So then if you start going more and more down, you'll eventually see B's and then C's. This is the same as if I had clarified ascending order. So you may be wondering why bother clarifying ascending order there. Well, it's nice because if you come back to read this or someone else is reading your code, you can realize that they specifically wanted it in ascending order. We can do the same for descending order by adding in DESC towards the end of this order by statement. And now notice we're starting at Zachary, then Yvonne, Yolanda, and going down. So starting at Z and then going down all the way to A. Now notice here that we have different store IDs, and we also have duplicate store IDs. So we have store ID 1, store ID 2, and store ID shows up multiple times. So we have multiple entries for store ID, which basically means that this particular customer, let's say Zachary Height, goes to store ID number 1. And this second customer, Yvonne Watkins, goes to store ID number 2. So there's Yolanda, Wilma, etc. what we could do is first order by the store ID to get all the results per store, and then organize it by first name. So the way this would work is I would say first order by store ID, and if I just run this by itself, notice now I get store ID 1 first, and then if I were to continue scrolling here, this may be a couple thousand, so it might be hard to actually see this, but then I eventually get store ID number 2. And then within this, you'll notice that if we scroll back up here, I'm actually just going to select store ID, first name, and last name columns. So let's reduce this a little bit. We'll say select the store ID column, select the first name column, and select the last name column. Run this. So if we take a look at this, the store ID is now sorted starting at 1, and then eventually you scroll down, you'll see store number 2, but the actual entries themselves are in no particular order within store ID. So what I could do is say first order by store ID, which makes sense because there's duplicate values in that particular column, and then go ahead and order by first name. So after you order by the store ID, go ahead and order by first name, run that, and here we can now see store ID number 1, then everything starting in alphabetical order based off the first name, and then we scroll down here to eventually hit store ID number 2, and we can see within store ID number 2, all the first names are now in alphabetical order, starting with A. And if you want, you can always add in ascending and descending to each particular order by statement. So I could say order the store ID on descending while ordering based off first name on ascending. And notice here, semicolon is optional. So we run this, and now at the very top, we're starting at store ID number 2, and then seeing the alphabetical order, Aaron, etc. And then eventually, if I scroll down far enough, I would see store ID number 1. The other thing to note here is that if I select just first name and last name and run this, it will still work, which means I can technically sort by columns that I do not actually request in my select statement. Now, whether or not you actually want to do that in a real-world setting is really up to you. Typically, it would make sense to actually select the column you're ordering by because that just logically looks better as a result, and it'll kind of continue the logic of your SQL query into your results, and you'll understand whatever the person was trying to explore from a business standpoint. But I do want you to be aware of the fact that you can technically order by a column and not select it in your select statement if for some reason you want to do that. Okay, that's it for the order by lecture. Coming up next, we're going to quickly discuss a limit function, which allows us to actually limit the amount of rows that are returned in a query, and then we'll give you some challenges for the order by statement in conjunction with the limit statement. I'll see you at the next lecture.